So yeah, the Nuggets have been great for a minute now. They're 12-3 in their last 15. In that stretch, they've beaten the Celtics, the Grizzlies, the Cavs. They've been up by 1,000,000 points on the Clippers. They're tied with the Grizzlies, who have won 7 in a row. Shout out to them for the 1 seed in the West right now. The Nuggets are tied with the Celtics for first in offense on the league. I will talk about the defense because that's a conversation with this team as well. But to appreciate this offense for a bit, of course, it all runs through Jokic. And I don't know how much I need to say Jokic is amazing because you already know that. But just for like 20 seconds here, I mean, the turnaround jumpers, the hook shots, the off-ball actions where he will, let's say, go baseline while getting a screen from Aaron Gordon or whatever to get good position. He can go coast to coast off of a rebound. He can set a screen for Jamal Murray. The big is in drop because they got to at least not give Jokic just an open lane to the basket. He'll make a floater off of that. Sometimes he'll just take a center off the dribble from the top of the key. He's great. Now, when we talk about the flow of this offense overall, around Jokic's passes especially, it's just kind of as good as you could ask for it to be between Jamal Murray, MPJ, Bruce Brown, KCP, Aaron Gordon. It's just a constant array of handoff actions and skip passes and Jokic screening, or sometimes guys screening for Jokic, or fake handoff actions that then lead to cuts or whatever. And it's just beautiful, and I don't really know how you guard it half the time, or way more than half the time, really. So we can start with Murray. I mean, his chemistry with Jokic is still pretty much there, and sometimes it really is just as simple as Jokic is bringing the ball up court, or it's Murray, whoever. They have a glance at each other, and then it immediately just becomes a handoff action, and then from there it's just like, pick your poison, man. Murray's good on pull-up jumpers. You can't play your big up high, or you can't trap him or whatever, because then it's just Jokic with all the space in the world to do whatever he wants. Switching it is super difficult because they both can kill you in that scenario. Jamal Murray's been doing a little bit of stuff in the post this year. He has been physical with sometimes like getting defenders on his back coming around screens where he can then flow into like a pull-up or a floater or whatever it is. And the other thing with Murray too, at least we forget, that guy goes off in the playoffs. You know, regular season, he's usually going to float around high teens, low 20s in points just because they don't need him to score like 27 a game. But in the playoffs, I would imagine they'll lean on him more. And typically when that sort of thing is happening, I have been interested to see how Aaron Gordon has been spacing the floor for them, because he has been in the dunker spot sometimes, which you would think the fear there is that it hurts the spacing, but it just kind of hasn't, and really all I think it's done is it's made the defense be like, well, we can't really leave you while we try to guard this Murray-Jokic action, because then it's just going to be you cutting to the basket. And I guess this can kind of segue into the Aaron Gordon stuff. So, you know, he's been doing some recently. He did it especially against the Celtics, where early in possessions, he would just get really good position in front of the rim, and Jokic would just find him immediately because Jokic brings the ball up for this team half the time anyway. Gordon and Jokic have also had some interesting, like, within the three-point line screens where sometimes Jokic will screen for Gordon, sometimes it'll be the other way around, and they're able to just kind of surprise the defense. You know, for a lot of teams, it's like they're searching for one sustainable thing on offense, and the Nuggets just have a Jokic-Gordon action in their back pocket at any time. If I mention KCP, you know, he's had plays where, like, he'll throw it to Jokic in the post. Like, they'll be on the same side of the floor, and then there'll be 3 dudes on the other side, so it's an empty corner with those 2. KCP will throw it to Jokic in the post, and then immediately start sprinting to get a handoff from him. And then from there, that can be a bucket, or, you know, Jokic could do a fake handoff and then do something, like, in the post or whatever. I'll get to MPJ in a second. Like, Jokic and Bruce Brown have run some just simple pick and rolls where Bruce Brown will then hit him like with a bounce pass, and then Jokic can get that into a floater. Bruce Brown's 3 has been good. He's been cutting off of Jokic as we all expected he would. Of course, you're going to have your down screens or whatever where, like, KCP's coming from the corner and then Jokic will be on the other side and then he'll hit him with a skip pass or whatever. Of course, it's not always just Jokic. Like, Jamal Murray averages a solid 5 assists, but, I mean, we know the heart of this offense, of course. And then we get to MPJ, who, as you would expect, a lot of catch and shoots. He does take his opportunities to shoot pull-ups in transition or coming across a screen if he gets that opportunity. Of course, he's going to be involved in a bunch of Jokic handoff actions, or he's also been a big recipient of Jokic skip passes this year. There was one play recently where Jokic was on the elbow, and it was going to be like a handoff action with Murray, and then in 1 second, he like turns around completely and just throws a bullet to MPJ in the opposite corner. He got a 3. It's like, yep, that's just Jokic. On the season now, MPJ, he's at 16 points on about 60 true shooting. I would expect MPJ to creep closer to 20 points per game, assuming that he stays healthy. The big thing with MPJ for me is I know, like, he's such a good shooter and he can make any shot over anybody, but I just don't want him to forget about cutting to the basket, attacking the offensive glass, at least taking 2 dribbles in if he's got the opportunity, not falling in love with the jump shot too much, even if he's still going to make a lot of the jump shots anyway. Also want to give a little credit to Bones Highland in this offense because he is looking to shoot, and he has been cooking a little bit recently. Whether they be like simple ISOs that'll lead to like step back threes or whatever, or pull-ups off of screens. I do feel like Bones Highland has got a bit of that Jamal Crawford, J.R. Smith, Lou Williams-esque career in him. So they're great on offense. Let's talk about the defense for a bit. So let me talk about the game plan first before I get into some numbers, although I will say as of right now they are 23rd in defensive rating on the season, although that number is much higher if you want to do it to their last 15 games or so. As far as what it looks like, the foundation of this team, at least recently, has been Jokic at the level of the screen, and then from there, somebody's going to be the low man, as in the guy who protects the basket, while Jokic and whoever was the other defender in the screen look to sort of freeze the ball handler for a second before Jokic can get back to his guy and they don't give up an open three or a cut to the rim pretty much. The low man typically ends up being Gordon or MPJ, but I actually have a screenshot from the Lakers game where it was a little different. You already know what I mean, but just to give you a picture of it, basically like this, MPJ is the one guarding the screen here with Jokic, and it actually ends up with Jokic and MPJ going pretty aggressively at the ball handler. Anyway, lately I think they've held up pretty okay. Now, I think they are susceptible to giving up the corner three. I think there are times where, like, let's say a team throws multiple screens at them, they can get a little discombobulated with one guy thinking that he's the help guy and then somebody else is, and then it's like somebody open for a three or whatever. For the season, they are pretty much middle of the pack in opponent three-point attempts allowed. It is possible for the big to get the ball on the move if you're maybe like a step too slow coming up on the screen or whatever, but Jokic has been getting to the spot in pretty good time recently, and assuming again that you're just like kind of keeping your arms in the passing lane and all that, it does a good job. Now, a couple questions. Do they have another coverage that they feel good about? Because in the playoffs, if you throw the same thing at teams, like they're going to be able to figure it out, right? Now, there is the possibility of having Jokic step up and then sort of back up after doing it, as opposed to sticking to the guard for that extra second before he sprints back to his guy pretty much. They could also experiment more with drop, even if I think Jokic at his best is playing at the level of the screen. But the other question I have is it too much to ask Jokic to do everything he does on offense for you and then also have him covering more ground defensively? Again, mostly for the playoffs. Regular season, I think it's fine. While I'm talking about defense, I would like to give a shout out to Christian Brown. His last name looks like Braun, but it's Brown. He's their rookie, and he is way better defensively than your average rookie. But back to the game plan stuff. Typically, Aaron Gordon will be on a wing, but he's kind of been on everybody. Like in the Celtics game, he had some possessions on Jalen and Tatum. Against the Clippers, he was on Kawhi. Against the Cavs, he was on Evan Mobley. MPJ is usually on a weaker wing player. They will switch simple actions, like if it's a guard action, that sort of thing. They do randomly bust out double teams sometimes that sometimes lead to Jokic being the rim protector. And I guess that's another conversation, like, because occasionally Jokic will be in drop, and sometimes he'll be guarding like a forward, and he'll actually be effectively like the help defender. And when Jokic is the lone rim protector, it gets interesting, if they're agile enough, like they can get around him without Jokic being able to like super affect it. And then other times he'll pull off like some really, really good looking contests. No, he is not the best defensive player in the league or up there like the advanced stats would tell us he has been for the last few years, but he's also way better than his biggest critics would say he is on that side of the floor. Anyway, I'll finally throw some numbers at you. Yes, they're 23rd in defensive rating overall for the season. That being said, their starting lineup has a defensive rating of 104, which is the equivalent of the best defense in the league by a mile. Granted, a lot of teams have that sort of a lineup, but still, that's nice. And their second most used lineup, which is Bruce Brown replacing MPJ, is 111.7, which would be like 10th in the league. So there you go. All the evidence to me, when I watch it, when I look at the numbers, it suggests that there's a good defensive team in here, and it's just a matter of being consistent, and maybe teams will figure out the Jokic playing up on the level of the screen stuff. But again, I think it looks pretty good. And then besides that, you got like KCP who will pick up like Darius Garland, that sort of thing. Now with this, everybody wants to say, well, what happens if they play the Warriors and all that? I mean, for one, the Warriors still need to figure out their own stuff. I mean, their home road split is the weirdest thing in the NBA right now. But assuming they get back on track and they held up pretty okay with Steph out, yeah, we'll see. Like, I think Jokic has certainly gotten good at playing up high on screens, but the Warriors throw so many actions at you with that sort of thing where they might make you do it multiple times in a possession, and we would see how he would deal with that. Of course, the guards to help him out with that sort of thing are better now compared to last season. Of course, it'll be a challenge against everybody. I don't want to imply the Nuggets are going to run through the West. Like, it's going to be a competitive playoffs, but as of right now, yeah, you can definitely pick the Nuggets to make the finals, and I don't think it'd be a crazy pick.